My name's Phil Gavant. I'm pleased that all of you can make it out here this evening. We got a great opportunity for you. Probably 3 years ago, summer of 2011, I'm in the Marconi Grill with my attorney, and he's helping me with incorporation and all that kind of stuff, some patent kind of stuff too. And he said, I truly believe you have a Fortune, not a Fortune 500 company, but a Fortune 50 company. And he said, you need somebody who really can do the business piece so you can focus on the creative part. He gave me a name, and the name was a guy by the name of Mike Sheldon. Mike has a business degree. He had a $200,000 annual finance business. And when, I guess the document for the fantasy football tournament was turned over to Mike to get his opinion, Mike was so interested in it that he immediately asked to have a meeting with me. We talked. Mike, 1 month later, basically said, I'm getting rid of my finance business and I'm going to work with you on this thing on a full-time basis. This opportunity presented to you tonight is really possible because of the hard work that he has put in. And I really appreciate you coming here tonight, and I think you will find this very compelling. Thank you. Mike.
Yeah, so everything he said is true. We've been working on this for about 3 years now, and I'll give you a lot about the progress that we've made, where we are at this point, what we're looking to do next. But I would say it's a phenomenal opportunity, and I've bet my whole career and everything I have on it. Being in finance for probably the last 15 years, I had a lot of people that would always put things in front of me and say, check out this business plan, tell me what you think about this, analyze that. And many of the business plans, all of them except for this one, up to this point I had to say, wrong timing, you got a hole here, probably won't work for this reason, market's not right. A lot of different reasons, but when I saw Phil's, I'm going to walk you through the last 3 years worth of time in hopefully about 1 hour. So don't get too overwhelmed. I've got a lot to share with you, but it's been a very nice process in the making. That when he initially tasked me with this presentation, he said, "You're a finance guy. Raise money for me, get my business off the ground." That was 2.5 years ago. I did that. We went to my friends and family, went to my investors, and I started raising capital for him. Well, it's come to the point where we've done a lot of the homework we've needed, but now he said, hey, if you did it for your friends and family, why don't we open this up for my friends and family? And that's where the opportunity came to you. Either you know him personally or you've been referred to us. What I'll do tonight is walk through really the brilliance of what he's done is phenomenal. I've had the ability to analyze this for quite a long time. And again, I'm going to put this to you. I like to keep this really informal. If you have questions, stop me from slide 1 to even to the end. It doesn't matter to me. I like the interaction. I like you to really make sure you get the information that you need. So as I go through this, I'll get real direct, and sometimes I like to make it kind of fun, and sometimes I get really excited and talk fast. But how many of you knew that this was about fantasy sports online? I think you may have already, okay, a lot of you did. His first email went out, and it basically said, come in, check this out, and nobody knew what it was. They just started showing up. So, what is this anyways? Basically, Phil has a degree in mathematics with a concentration in game theory, which means he's a really smart guy that knows how to make fun games. And that's putting it simply. But when you look at the market, and I had to have him share this with me, when I first heard this is a business about fantasy sports, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's fun. That might be something that my nephew has a league, my brother has a league, my dad plays, but isn't that just some casual thing people do? And then I started studying the market, finding out Forbes covers stuff like this. The industry for fantasy sports is about a $15 billion industry. This is a dated article. 32 million people is now 34 million people. 34 million people play fantasy football. When you look at what that NFL annual revenue is, the NFL's annual revenue is just under 10 billion. It means the derivative market of fantasy sports is actually bigger than the market of the NFL itself. It's incredible business opportunity. I looked at that market and I started to analyze it. I wanted to know a little bit, how mature is that market? There's actually a Fantasy Sports Trade Association, FSTA. You can look them up a little bit. And they do tons of statistics. They support the industry. There's a lot of different peripheral parts of the industry. I'll get right into who we are and how we're going to segment our market. But when I looked at any business, I said, how many people need what I have to offer? I don't care what business you might be offering, McDonald's, whatever you might be buying into. How many people want it, need it, like it? When I see 1 in 5 men play fantasy sports in a 34 million person market, and it's not just fantasy football, about 77% of the market is fantasy football, but there's a developed fantasy game for almost every sport you can think of. The other evening we had a person here that plays fantasy NASCAR. We could talk fantasy World Cup soccer. I'll get into some of the statistics and what we will do as far as our game plan of phasing into the market as we go. But this market is very developed and still growing. To get it right out in front and at the beginning, probably my first question to Phil when we were looking at this is it legal? Is this legal? Can you actually go online and play fantasy sports for money and win multiple millions of dollars, which is I'll explain as we go through the gaming aspect, and it absolutely is. This is an article that was actually written about from an Atlantic City standpoint for the Fantasy Football Festival. If you've heard of Reed Entertainment, have you heard of Comic-Con? Comic-Con is put on by Reed Entertainment. Reed Entertainment puts on conventions for socially fun things like comics, fantasy things. They actually did their first Fantasy Football Festival in Atlantic City. We were co-sponsors with them, and it was fabulous. Our booth was right behind this one, which had all this sports memorabilia. And thousands of people in Atlantic City came by. We had radio stations there, professional athletes there, the NFL experience was there, and we started sponsoring, made a lot of great connections, and we started to build our marketing with some of those connections and really the networking that we did at that event, and springboarded us into a few things I'll explain as I go. One of the first stories Phil told me really drove home to me the potential for this business, us specifically, not just the market, but just us. And I'll tell you even more. Anybody here like numbers? Good statistics? All right, you and I will talk a little bit. Everybody else, hang on for a minute. But that's why I did a graph. Pretty pictures. Look, who's heard of World Series of Poker? Most people are pretty familiar with that process. Think about what poker, when I learned how to play poker, it was in my garage with my family, friends. A bunch of people came over, there was about 10 of us, sat at the table, played poker. Make sense? Well, what's a World Series of Poker? World Series of Poker is something Caesars Entertainment developed and said, hey, why don't we have a qualification process nationally where people can play poker online or in casinos and go through a qualification process. We'll call them satellite rounds. And if people across the country win these satellite rounds and advance and continue to advance in poker, it culminates in an event in Las Vegas called the World Series of Poker, and we'll give people a multi-million-dollar prize, and that's World Series of Poker format. Qualification process throughout the country culminates in a multi-million-dollar grand prize. That'll have a lot to do with what we talk about with our game, but when you just look at the quantity of online poker players, a little bit of history, 2000 to 2005 had a tenfold growth in the number of people playing online poker. Much more relevant, important to me, is the dollar sign. What was the revenue? What did the revenue do? The quantity of people grew 10 times. There was a 3,000 plus growth rate in the revenue. $82 million industry grew to $2.4 billion industry. How do you create a $1 billion industry in 5 short years? And I bring this up for a very important purpose. We're going to talk about us being a $1 billion company ourselves. And if I just bring that out of the sky, out of the blue, you'd say you're nuts. Well, it's been done. And what Phil's genius is, back in that day, in this time frame, he said, what happened? Because if you can look at what happened, what caused that, what were the ingredients that manufactured an $82 million growth to $2.4 billion industry, if you can find out what happened from 1 million to 10 million, take those ingredients and apply it to a much bigger market. They're both games. One's poker. This is fantasy sports. If you can find out what caused that phenomenal growth and apply it to a 34 million person market, what would the future look like for a company that could do that? How many of you have read or heard of Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers? Right? I love all his books. He's written 3 that I've read. He's a brilliant statistician. He's got all these crazy, he's a nut to me. He's just got these really great ideas. Well, he wrote in the Outliers that to become an expert at something, you got to put in about 10,000 hours. Bill Gates put in about Malcolm Gladwell studied this. 10,000 hours Bill Gates put into learning how to program, became an expert. Mozart put in 10,000 hours learning the piano, became an expert. Look at professional athletes from the time they started playing Little League. They put in about 10,000 hours worth of time to become an expert. And when Phil started telling me this, I said, you know what, Phil, if you look at this. You've put in about 10,000 hours of studying fantasy sports and the industry and games. You're an expert at this stuff. So when I talk strategic competitive analysis, no one's ahead of the game like Phil is. And he's put in enough time to study stuff like this that this is real to me. And it could be real to you. And here's part of what he studied. And I'll get in, and again, ask me questions you have about the gaming. By the way, raise a hand, who plays fantasy sports here? Okay, good. You guys are going to be my experts. Who's heard of Chris Moneymaker? All right, I'll start leading into what were those ingredients? What caused the phenomenal growth? And how are we going to replicate that in fantasy sports industry? This guy had a lot to do with it. In 2003 is when he came to light. Prior to 2003, the World Series of Poker was won continually, year after year, by professionals. 2003, this gentleman, an accountant in Georgia, went online, paid $39, and started winning these satellite rounds to qualify for the main event in Vegas for the World Series of Poker. And he won it. First amateur to ever beat the pros. Now, what message was sent across the United States to people who like to play poker?
Anybody can do it.
If that guy can do it, I can do it. And guess what happened in 2004? Greg Raymer, second year in a row, an amateur, won it again. $2.4 billion industry, because everybody's like, if I can get online and try to win poker, which I love the game, and I have a chance to win multi-millions of dollars, I'm going to try. I'm going to at least go for it. I remember my friends even talking about it. World Series of Poker bloomed because of stuff like this. By definition, there's no such thing as a professional fantasy sports player yet, right? Not yet. But what Phil has created is a national tournament. If you think about poker the way I learned it in the garage with my few friends, that's kind of how fantasy football is now. If you said, I play fantasy football, most likely what you do is you find a group of friends, peers, coworkers, family, you get 10 of you together, say, let's all put some money in, let's play fantasy football all year, we'll put our team on Yahoo, CBS, and ESPN are the main players in that field right now, and at the end of the year, we'll divvy up the money. World Series of Poker took the poker game to a national format, multi-million-dollar tournament. What Phil's done is the first to have a nationally formatted fantasy football tournament for everybody who right now plays fantasy sports with their group of friends to say, are you good enough to qualify in your satellite rounds nationwide to qualify for a main event of fantasy sports for a multi-million-dollar grand prize? There's a reason I have this split up a little bit, but Phil analyzed this. Phil's put thousands of hours to say, what does the market look like right now for fantasy sports, and what's it missing? What are the ingredients missing that haven't been replicated to do what World Series of Poker did? How do we make that happen in fantasy sports? And if I can do that, what will our future look like? And the reason I broke them up is we kind of termed the first two the moneymaker effect. The last two, a little bit different, the last five, a little different category. But the first two are, I don't want to oversimplify it, but low entry fee, multi-million. That's the moneymaker effect. Moneymaker effect says, can I pay a little bit of money to try to win a lot? What's that sound like also? Kind of like a lottery, right? This is more a game. Lottery is luck. In the world of luck, just paying a couple bucks, trying to win, people go in and buy scratchers all day long. People go in and buy lottery tickets all day long. This is not what we're about. This part, we don't just let it stand alone. If you just had a standalone two ingredient game, it's luck. It'd be like me saying, let's all pay $5 and jump off a bridge, and whoever breaks the least amount of bones wins multiple millions of dollars. Who's in? Like, nobody. You're like, it's dumb. It's not a fun game. That's not a fun game, right? Unless you're a teenager and then you do it just for no money, right? But the first two, they don't stand alone. But they're important when you add in the last five. These five are really just the game part. What's fun about a game? How many of you play video games? I mean, you play video games for no money because they're fun. There's a gaming aspect to it. It's interesting. Candy Crush. It's good. Who plays Candy Crush? And do not send me an invitation. I continually think I have friends sending me cool stuff on Facebook. No, it's just someone inviting me to play Candy Crush. I don't even know what it is. I don't play it. But apparently it's a really fun game, right? So can you have these last five ingredients and create a really fun game and have it exciting and have people engaged? Yes. But if you can take those five ingredients and have a fun game and apply the top two, the moneymaker effect, you're golden. The best the fantasy sports industry has done, the best any other company has done, is find 4 of the 7. 4 of the 7. They mix, they match, they try. But what we see as a problem in the industry is that it's run by lots of guys that like sports. But what Phil is a mathematician that likes sports. And when you analyze what he's done, we found a way to get all 7 ingredients into one game, one market. I'm gonna let him talk a little bit.
It's the holy grail of the fantasy industry, fantasy sports industry. Mike's right. The best anybody's ever done is 4 of the 7 components. And that's clearly not good enough. And what the industry has done, because they've tried. I mean, people understand that a low entry fee and $1 million prize or multi-millions is wonderful. That's exactly what you want to do. So what they've done is they've taken what I call the 2 moneymaker components, and since they've only been able to do 4, they've said, here's a tournament with a low entry fee, well, they haven't even done a multi-million. They've done $1 million tournament, but they only have a couple of these components, and the game stinks. Even more critical, no company has ever had the 2 moneymaker components and also had skill as a factor in the game. Now, if we were going to make a correlation to the World Series of Poker, this phenomenal thing that just absolutely galvanized this country, this is the way the game would be if there was no skill involved. And this is what's happening in the fantasy world. You would have 1 million people simultaneously playing in a satellite tournament. But of course, there's no skill involved. So everybody would be dealt one hand. So you don't even consider what your hand is. You just show your hand, and a computer would tabulate and say who's got the best hand. Well, that's going to take a certifiable royal flush with 1 million people playing, or something very close to that, to advance to the main event. Nobody's going to play that. The World Series of Poker would cease, at least the online part, would cease to exist. I'm going to bring back something Mike just mentioned. This is an industry where there's 34 million rabid fans. Poker went from 1 to 10 million people in a 5-year period when Chris Moneymaker had his success and Greg Raymer followed. With a 34 million person community right now, they're so excited about fantasy football, they're playing these garbage type of tournaments right now. They're playing them. They're being offered on the market. And we've got something, this is the opportunity you have tonight. We have something that is going to obliterate them, because we do have all 7 features. We have a low entry fee, a multi-million dollar grand prize, and exciting gaming action that is going to make it very compelling for fantasy enthusiasts.
By the way, if you have questions, just yell at me. I'm going to transition a bit.
Phil,
Dan, go ahead.
how how is this different from DraftKings or FanDuel?
Perfect. But DraftKings and FanDuel, they actually, let's talk about, Mike was talking about the garage type of tournaments where basically people for 5, 10, 15, 20 bucks, they'll enter, the house will take 10% and the winner will take a certain amount. Maybe second place will get some money. That's kind of what they're doing. They're in what's called the daily games. They're basically replicating what happens when you play in a group of 10, 12 people. They have tried to do a tournament though, like I'm suggesting. And they've only, like everyone else, they either have 4 or less of the critical components. For example, FanDuel has they had $1 million tournament last year. The winner got $1 million, I think second got $350,000. And the way it worked was that for a $109 buy-in, there were a couple different buy-ins, for $109, you could compete against a couple thousand people. Actually, for that level of buy-in, it was like 1,000 people. And it would happen simultaneously. So you're playing 1,000 people. Now you could be a skilled player, but beating 1,000 people at one time is really difficult to do. Compare that to our format where you play 12 people at a time and you don't even have to win. The top 3 advance. Now that's exciting competition. So FanDuel's got this thing. That's basically what DraftKings are doing. They don't know how to properly weed out the players because there's a lot of gaming strategies that are involved with it. So all these players are playing simultaneously and hoping to get lucky, and that's $109 is too much for that. So FanDuel has gotten smarter. They've tried to lower the price, but all of a sudden for $9, $10, now you got to play 10,000 people at once. So any way you slice it, it's bad news.
I'll go into FanDuel a little bit as we go too, but here's where we've positioned ourselves. Stratmish, which I glossed over this to begin with, but Stratmish is really strategy and skirmish combined. Phil came up with it as we were going through our trademarking and legal processes, and Stratmish was a word that didn't exist before, so it was easy for us to trademark and protect as far as intellectual property goes. We've positioned ourselves right in the middle of the fanaticism of the NFL and fantasy sports and the gaming aspect with the moneymaker effect to really do some great, great things. I'll give you an idea of where we are now. Everything we've raised so far is really bent towards the technology and the process of protecting us intellectually. We've got patents pending for every game, copyrighted, trademarked, and built the website. When we start talking about daily games and such, this is actually the website right now. We're ready to go for the season. The season starts September 4th. We're retrofitting the website a little bit based on some new concepts and new ideas we developed really just in the last month, and I'll share those with you as I go. But here it is, a multi-million-dollar grand prize on a nationally formatted tournament. Towards the bottom, you can see weekly prizes, so we will have a daily component. A lot of our marketing was thinking, what's the instant gratification needed to keep our clients and our customers engaged besides just some multi-million-dollar format? What about on a weekly basis getting people excited to keep playing and keep playing? And I'll give you a lot of the marketing behind that. But we've built something that's very engaging. And I'll tell you why fantasy football has driven the NFL into the most popular sport in the United States. It used to be baseball's America's pastime, no longer, not even close. The NFL has taken that title and will probably hold it for quite some time. And here's a big reason why. When I was a kid, we watched maybe 3 games in a weekend. A morning game on Sunday, afternoon game on Sunday, and then maybe Monday Night Football. And guess which game we watched? Our favorite team. My dad's favorite team, okay? I had no say-so. It was the Niners. We had to watch the Niners, but you follow me? Technology said, watch a game, and your desire said, watch your favorite team, right? Who would ever want to watch the Detroit Lions play the Houston Texans? Nobody, unless you live in Houston or you lived in Detroit or are a fan of those two teams for some crazy reason. Who likes them, right? Some craziness. Here's what fantasy football did. What if this was your team for your fantasy game and Reggie Bush on the Detroit Lions was your running back? Are you going to watch that game? Now you're watching that game. What if Andre Johnson on the Houston Texans was your wide receiver? Are you going to watch that game? Yep. You going to watch the Carolina Panthers play Cam Newton? Not your teammate, but the guy you're playing against that weekend. That's his quarterback, so you better watch that game to make sure to see how he does so you know how many points that guy's getting so you can beat him. All of a sudden, you're watching a game on your phone, a game on your iPad, a game on the TV, a game on your laptop. You're watching 4 games simultaneously. It's just the NFL viewership has gone through the roof. Fantasy sports has driven that. The commissioner now requires stadiums to put fantasy sports statistics on the Megatron so people can watch fantasy sports stats instead of the game, right? They don't even watch the game. It's like, where's the stats? It's like the technology is phenomenal these days. So you have to have a very engaging product. Fantasy football is not going away, and I'll expand on not just the fantasy football. And kind of as Phil indicated, this is actually our game. You're going to compete against 12 other people. As long as you're in the top 3, you advance. If you look at the egos of a fantasy football player, not the football player, the fantasy football player, I haven't met one right now that doesn't know for a fact they will kick their friends' butts every year in and out, all the time. They're like, I'm the best person at it. I do the most homework. If you ask Phil, he said, I won my league every year. We have an actual commercial called Bragging Rights. That's the name of our commercial. It's going to be on TV. Bragging Rights. That's what fantasy football is all about. So, Dan, to answer your question, if you said, okay, what about FanDuel? Well, what if I said, as an individual, I'm the best fantasy football player I know. But if you put me against 1,000 other people and I got to beat 1,000 people, there's too much luck in that. I'd rather know my opponent. If you said, can you get in the top 3 out of 12? All day long, I can get in the top 3 of 12. Be the top 1 out of 1,000? I don't know about that. I don't know. That's somebody's gonna get lucky. I don't want to play that game. I'll play that game, and I will win millions of dollars. What Phil's developed is, in essence, a poker table format to qualify regionally around the country that will ultimately culminate in a multiple $1,000,000 payout. I'll give you a timeline as I go, but we'll put the competition to bed. They won't develop fast enough to compete with what Phil's got. It's engaging, and I'll talk a little bit about the marketing, and then kind of the twofold thing, 2 things at once. This year, we won't run that national formatted tournament. So when I keep speaking of the big picture, multiple millions and millions of people playing, that'll be 2015 NFL season. This year, we're running something a little different. And I'll explain that in 2 seconds. First, this is what the big picture will look like. We've got a lot of relationships that we've already built. It'll be an extremely multimedia campaign. Radio, TV, mobile devices, everything blasted out that way. Big social media component. Last year, just to test our system and get people to give us some feedback, beta test the site, we just did blogs. We didn't offer a tournament. We didn't collect revenue. We didn't do anything other than just, come look at our site, and did a blog on just social content media. Being the person I had do the writing, do injury reports, do player evaluations, tell us how Peyton Manning's doing in Denver this year, tell us how the Seattle Mariners are using meditation, Seahawks are using meditation to win the Super Bowl. So all we did was of interest articles, and we had 83,000 people watching us with no tournament, just through our social media component. We'll be able to take that and expand on that immediately when we run actual tournament. It'd be phenomenal. We've got existing relationship with public relations. The DKC is actually the people that put on the Fantasy Football Festival with Reed Entertainment. They put me in contact with the Associated Press writer for the NFL. The actual NFL editor for the Associated Press is someone I could call and say, hey, do an article, we're ready to launch. And he will write an article and put it into every NFL city in the country from the Associated Press. We've got great media attention for us already. When we ran that, this is what gave me a lot of passion. Phil tells me lots of things. What gave me the passion as I kept going is every time I learned something, I'm like, man, Phil's right. He is dead on. We went to this Fantasy Football Festival, and there was probably 30 different booths. FanDuel was there, DraftKings was there, Draft Street was there, and the media, radio station, Sirius Radio, was going around interviewing people. We had the most people at our booth saying, do you guys really have this game? Other people were coming to check us out. We were actually on the radio, on the spot, live at the event because they said, how are you guys doing what you do? That was Phil's genius. And I said, this guy's got something put together that if we do the right things at the right time, will destroy the competition. Revenue sharing affiliates. This whole package is about a $20 million a year package. All the prize money, all the marketing, all the advertising we need to do is about 20 million. And I'll be real honest with you, up to a couple of months ago, we were still trying to raise $20 million from somebody. And every time we went to a casino or entrepreneurs or people overseas and said, we need $20 million, we need $20 million, guess what they said to us? We love your idea. Well, we'll give you the 20 million. We want 80% of your company. We want 70% of your company. We want 90% of your company. And guess what we told them? We're videoing. I can't tell you the exact words we told them. But we said, no deal. There's no way. Phil and I both have an extreme passion and an agreement with each other that the majority of the revenue for this company will go to disadvantaged communities and service to other people. And anytime we had to give up 70, 80, 90% of the company, that was not going to allow us to achieve our mission. We knew there was a different way and a better way, and the path led us this direction. We turned down deals. It's not easy when you're an entrepreneur trying to build a company and saying, I've got a ability to have a $20 million check in my hand and tell those people no. You have to have some guts, right? Talk about playing poker. It's like, no. We decided to do something a little different. About 2 months ago, I came up with a new idea, and that's where we are right now. So this whole package up towards the top, the $20 million package, is really 2015's plan. What we're doing now is a franchising model. And I don't know if you've heard of, who really built McDonald's, the restaurant? Ray Kroc, right? McDonald's brothers had one location down in San Bernardino. Ray Kroc sold mixers to them. He'd go in there and sell mixers. He says, you guys have got a really awesome system here. You guys, this thing's running like clockwork, your little hamburger stand. You ever thought about a second one or a third one? McDonald's brothers, no, not really. We like our store, we're doing good. Ray Kroc said, mind if I do it? And Ray Kroc put one in Des Moines, Iowa as a test, another one down in LA as a test. He built these two, produced a perfect system, and now Ray Kroc has built what you guys know today, and we all know as the International McDonald's Corporation, right? And I read a book called Grinding It Out years ago, and it came to me, and I talked to Phil. I said, you know what? What if we franchise this? And all the research I've done, casinos are specifically pretty bent about the fact that fantasy sports is growing and become this billion-dollar industry, and casinos aren't getting any piece of that. It's all online. All this online stuff, and casinos like, we want a piece of that, we're cut out. And I came up with a way to take Phil's game, modularize it, and get it into a casino as a franchise opportunity for them. And this is where we are right now as we're building. We've got ability to take our website, which is strapmish.com. Don't go look it up, and I'll tell you why in a moment, because really we're just going to run through the franchising. But we take our strapmish.com and now call it strapmish.thundervalley.com and give it to Thunder Valley. And we're working with them as just an example. We can give it to Steve Wynn down in Vegas. Now that casino, how interested are they in fantasy sports? Massively interested in fantasy sports. And when I present to them, what I've told them is, look, you have already established distribution channels for marketing and advertising. How many of you get postcards from a casino for a slot tournament or go to the restaurant or whatever? How many billboards you see for casino? Radios, Cash Creek's all over the radio. They've already got a distribution channel to a market. If I hand them a game, as if it was poker, as if it was blackjack, as if it was a slot machine, say, how about fantasy sports? And I hand it to them and say, push this through your existing distribution channel called strapmish.thundervalley.com, and let's get people playing fantasy sports. They're interested for two reasons. One is they're all highly interested in getting into online poker when it's legal again. Online poker is not legal, but it will be soon. And every casino out there is saying, when it is, we want to be in the online poker market. This is a precursor to that. How would you like to build an online fantasy business to build a demographic of people already with a propensity to want to go online and play a game online? Start building it now. Build your knowledge units, build your database. Secondly, is even though you're marketing this through a website and people are playing at home in the comfort of their home playing fantasy sports, if they win the first round, offer them $20 to your restaurant. If they win a second round, offer them $20 free slot play if they come in the casino. And as anybody in the casino business would tell you, they want people in the casino. Why do they even have restaurants? Not so that they can make money from the restaurant, because when you walk in and eat at the restaurant, you also drop $200 to $300 at a slot machine somewhere, right? Why do they even have a pool? Why do they even have concerts? They want people just in the casino to gamble. This is a way to entertain them, to say, play fantasy sports, but they've got to come in the casino to redeem what they've won. Slot play, whatever it might be. And in Phil's game, as you continue to advance, you're in the top 3 of 12. Every time you advance, Phil's built a model that says the prizes get bigger and bigger. Up to 10 consecutive advances, you win $100,000. Now, will a casino put up $100,000 as a prize to the fantasy football game? They do it now for ridiculous things, right? They spend $100,000 a day just to say, come play slots. In fact, how many of you have been to a slot machine or a casino and seen like the mega bucks? Play slots and win $10 million. Now, who wins? Who pays the $10 million if you win that? I just learned. What's that? Technically, all the players who have lost now paid you, right? That's technically probably where the money came from. But really, it's a shared liability. Go ahead.
So, if the tournament's running through casinos and it's running on scratmish.com, is everybody playing towards the same tournament at the end of the year? Is everybody headed the same direction ultimately?
You just nailed it. Because that's what we've built. Initially, for the regular season, it will completely modularized. Every casino will be a standalone game by themselves. They can offer, and what we've done is really, I mentioned $100,000, but it's really a variable to the casino. Larger casinos can offer more. Wind River's a little bit smaller. They don't want to do a $100,000 grand prize. They want to make it lower. But they can customize it to whatever they think would draw attention. That's the regular season. And where I was going with that $10 million prize is a slot machine, when you see that mega bucks, $10 million, and I got this idea by talking to Thunder Valley when I started asking, how do these slot machines even work? I mean, if someone wins $10 million, you got to pay them $10 million? They're like, no, it's shared. There's like hundreds of casinos. Let's pretend there's 10. If it's a $10 million grand prize and someone wins it at Thunder Valley, 10 different casinos all put $1 million in and pay that person. So with a casino, what's a casino get to do? We have a $10 million potential grand prize, but we're only liable for $1 million. And really, there's not 10 casinos, there's a lot more. So what's the benefit to the casino for that shared liability? I can advertise this massive game. Now, I hope the person that wins is in my casino, because then I can publicize that, but I actually don't care. I don't care who pays it. I don't care if the winner's here. I just want to advertise I have a $10 million potential with a shared liability that I am not on the hook for. And that's what we're going to do. We'll have satellite tournaments for our fantasy football all throughout the country with multiple casinos for the regular season. At the end of the year, we'll have a final main event tournament, just like World Series of Poker, with a shared liability of all those casinos all piled into one multi-million. Now the casino can offer, we've got a regular season $100,000 winner with the potential to win $5 million, $10 million at the end of the year. Come play fantasy football at our site.
So I just want to be clear. You actually have a commitment from Steve Wynn?
No, that was an example. We talked to him, but he wanted a lot more money. I'll tell you a little bit. Vegas was not a hot spot for us. And I'll tell you why. Our model is perfect for Thunder Valley and honestly, a lot of these casinos throughout the country, because who do they market to? People that geographically live close, play, and will come in. Well, who plays in Vegas casinos? Transients. Yeah, people in China. So they can push out their marketing, Vegas style, but someone who wins $20 free slot play isn't going to fly in from China or even drive from Sacramento to Vegas just because they won $20. But if you won $20 to a restaurant at Thunder Valley, you can go in on Friday night. So these regional casinos is our hotspot. That's our market. Steve Wynn was interested in the $20 million pie, but wanted too much. Those greedy guys. Vegas is dying. Why don't they just give us the money? Give us the money. Come on. So we've partnered. We've got a very interactive, fun thing. I mentioned casinos, but it's not just casinos we're working with right now. Casinos, racetracks, and actually restaurants, sports bars. I was talking yesterday, people from Wingnuts. Wingnuts has 8 locations in Utah. It's like a Buffalo Wild Wings. Working with Hooters right now. We've got these tabletop devices with people that we've partnered with called Evolution Gaming. This is called Juke Slot. This is a device that retrofits to a slot machine. Casinos want people to sit at a slot machine and never leave. Not even go to the bathroom. Right? No, don't get up. Stay here. This device is something they can put on a slot machine to entertain them, actually market to them. They can order drinks, all these different reasons they're on there. We've partnered with them, so we will be the fantasy football part of this component. People can walk in and play. When you swipe your player card, for example, when I swipe my player card on that at a specific slot machine, that casino now knows Mike Sheldon is sitting at that slot machine right now. Based on his player card, we know where he lives, what he likes. Does he like music? Let's advertise casino concert to him. Let's advertise our restaurant. Let's advertise fantasy football. So we're working with these people. They have existing relationships with casinos already. They've been in business over a decade, and they have the ability to put us in front of all these casinos. Anybody here in sales? Right? If you're in sales, one of the biggest things you want be able to cross-market more things to existing clients. We've partnered with several groups that already cater to the casino industry. They're dying to walk into their casino existing relationship with a new product. We're specifically having people call me and say, is your product ready? Our sales guys got to sell something. They're tired of walking in and just servicing them and saying, I got a new slot machine. They would love to walk in and say, it's almost football season. Can I sell you a fantasy football game for your casino? And we've got that ready to be turned on at a moment's notice. Questions? All right.
Michael, so as you, over time, I know the idea is to sort of get away from the casinos and do the online. Will
Right.
you still keep the relationship with casinos? Will that still be going on when you sort of do an online thing where people do it from home?
Probably, but it's really going to be played by ear. Initially, we're going to do 1-year agreements with the casinos. Ultimately, we'll have our own standalone site because organically we'll create enough cash flow through the casino franchising model to just run our own site with our own grand prizes. That might take, our estimation, 1 year. But it's limitless what we can do with the casino, so I don't know if we'll break the relationship. We'll always have the NFL final season main event tournament with a casino's input. But we'll just do both.
Let me just add one thing. When you think of the World Series of Poker, you think of watching ESPN and the televised part. We've developed some really compelling ways to do the fantasy tournaments when you have these people in the main event and they're competing at a table against each other. So it's going to be high drama TV. So I can see definitely a sponsoring type of casino wanting to, Harrah's or whatever, MGM, somebody wanting to have their name affixed to this, tournament. There's one thing what Mike was talking about, the way you develop the prize pool is you say, hey, every one of these casinos all throughout the country, and he's right, the Native American casinos are the best ones because they're everywhere and they draw people in that are local, but 10% of every individual tournament, so you're running your own casino tournament, 10% of those proceeds go to the national tournament. When you all of a sudden have 300-400 casinos involved with that, Mike's talking $5-10 million to the winner, you might have a $30 million a $40 million grand prize, and if it's competitive, that thing, you remember that 1 to 10 million people playing? That was when the moneymaker effect hit. That's when Chris Moneymaker became famous in the poker community. If you have 34 million fantasy football players, you're going to have non-players get involved, and that number is going to go, you could get 100 million people playing there. And if you get that going, just that one tournament is going to generate 10 to 12 billion dollars annually, easily.
This is where it gets a little even more fun, and I start talking even faster right about now. But we mentioned FanDuel. FanDuel happens to be the industry leader right now. If you said, look, let's look at the main fantasy football industry, it's CBS, Yahoo, ESPN. That's the way the game has been played. But the periphery market for all these people that want something added to the way the game's played are the side companies. And I should really note, CBS, the Yahoos, and the ESPNs of the world, that's not even our competition. We're a complementary product to them. The more they grow and the 34 million person market grows, the more we'll grow. There's no person that would say, I play fantasy football, I'm going to stop doing what I do now and play Stratmish. This is like, I'm going to do what I do now because it's fun, it's engaging, I like to play with my friends, but I'm also going to put in $5 to win millions. This happens to be our competition. FanDuel is an example. Somebody said, how do we capitalize on the market? And I want to give you a big number because this isn't just a lot of people messing around with investments. This happens to be Comcast put $11 million into FanDuel. This industry is trying to find a way to make a lot of money. It's got some well-heeled investors in it, but they've got a very, very flawed product. Daily games happens to be, when I showed you on our screen of our website, Phil's tournament structure is such that it's a season-long tournament with a multi-million-dollar grand prize. A lot of these companies, they have not figured out how to do it profitably. They run something called daily games instead. If you went on one specific week, on a day, a daily game, and said, I've got $50, I want to play fantasy sports just this weekend. I don't want a tournament, I just want to play today. They'd match you up with other people with $50. You'd play at the table, online. The winner would take the pot, the losers would not, and then FanDuel takes a piece of the action, just like a poker game in Vegas, poker game in Tahoe. You all play, the winner gets the pot, and the house takes a little bit of a percent. That's FanDuel's business model. And there's a massive amount of money towards, let's try to find a way. 250,000 people per week are right now in FanDuel's site. Here's why I bring this up even more, and I'll show you some people. Nigel Eccles is the CEO of FanDuel. Jeff Bowe is the head of business development. Phil has actually spoken with Nigel. I've spoken more with Jeff because we had this thought back in, January or so. Yeah, January. So FanDuel already has a market and a daily game, and we have a tournament. Why don't we just partner with them? Why don't we just partner with FanDuel, use their database and some of the money they've already raised, because we weren't raising the $20 million for anything right away. And why don't we just partner with them? We really have kind of hamburgers and French fries. They're a good meal, but they're not. We can offer them together. Let's partner with these guys. So we actually started to talk to them. I want to give you a quote by Nigel. Nigel in February said, I feel that neither we nor any of our competitors have yet managed to deliver a product that can be taken to the mass market. That will be a major theme of our product development over the next 2 years. They can't figure out what Phil's figured out. They think it's going to take another 2 years. And Phil had sad news for me. He said, it's not going to take 2 years. It's going to take you about 10,000 hours. All right? Read the book. Nigel, you got a lot longer than 2 years to figure out how to get a product to mass market. We've figured it out. We know the 7 ingredients. He said it's going to take him a couple years to do that. In essence, the market is saying we can't figure out how to make a lot of money in the industry. I mentioned Jeff Bowe. Jeff signed a non-compete with us in January of 2014. We were thinking of partnering. Things fell apart. I'll explain more. But they actually signed a non-compete that says, and Phil may be able to share a little bit, but they basically told us, you can't have done what you think you did. The math is too hard. I'm like, you're talking to a math teacher. You've signed a non-disclosure and you won't compete against us and you can't compete against us. And we're not going to sign a non-compete because we are going to compete against you guys now. If you don't want to entertain us, screw you. We're going to beat you at your own game. And this is what my little analogy looks like for FanDuel. Because let me put it this way. If this is FanDuel and you've got a 34 million person market that's hungry for a game, if you're hungry, would you eat that? If it's the only thing you had to eat, yes. And it's what's created is FanDuel's industry leader right now because they're offering crappy fries to a market that's just hungry. But there's no competition saying, we've got a double quarter pounder with cheese. Right? Because this is Phil's World Series of Poker formatted national multi-million-dollar tournament structure versus a daily game of crappy fries. And when we started looking at this and say, this is what we have, why would we even partner with them? And Phil, being the genius that he is, knows how to make daily games anyways. Let's just take your tournament structure, make better fries, and now for a Happy Meal to the market. Yeah, question?
Well, I probably missed what you said. I was trying to actually read that agreement between.
Oh, go for it.
What did that actually? Is that agreement still in effect? Is that legally binding? What did it exactly lock the two companies into doing with each other?
It didn't lock us into doing anything together. What it prohibited them from doing is using any of our patents to actually market their games. They can't compete using our I'm using the wrong word, our intellectual property.
Would you have to do that? Would you have to get them to agree not to if you have it patented and locked up already?
No, we didn't have to, but just the fact that they signed it is just a little bit extra padding for us to. They can't come out right now and say we've got a World Series of Poker formatted tournament structure with a multi-million-dollar grand prize and have any of the components that we have patented. They're double locked up.
Why would they?
I'll tell you why they signed it. I made some claims, and I said, hey, we can develop a tournament. I made many claims, but I'll just do the three main ones. Low entry fee, multi-million-dollar grand prize, where it's competitive, where people are not thrown into these big bowls of thousands of people competing at once. And then I threw out some other ingredients too, and he said, that is not possible. So he even said, if you can demonstrate to me that that's possible, I'm willing to sign a non-disclosure, which is unheard of. To sign a non-disclosure when you're the leader in the industry, you're basically capitulating. I showed him a little stuff, very minor stuff, because it's kind of like this process has been, I thought I was doing great in 2011. It looks like a Model T now compared to a Lamborghini back then to where we are now. So I showed him a little bit of the Model T stuff because these guys are way behind in the game. And it got their attention of, oh, this guy knows what he's doing, and he's a threat, and then it kind of broke down.
And what was your incentive, or why did you want to show him
Great question.
what you were capable of doing already?
Great question. Because I ultimately wanted to raise capital so we could run the big tournament. So you've got somebody with the intellectual property who's cash poor, and you've got people who've raised money, and they're doing something different, and they're trying to run a big tournament that is so flawed, that is horrific. Just terrible. They still made a little bit of money on it, believe it or not. But it's that analogy I gave where it's everybody's getting one hand, and who's got the royal flush. That's the kind of stuff that they have. So it was, how do we take our product to the market in a way where we don't give up, and Mike's talking 70, 80, 90% of the company. I even had issues, there was some stuff where it was a lot less of the company, but bottom line is our ultimate goal is to donate 99.9% of the money to disadvantaged communities. And in order to do that, you have to figure out a way that's going to go, that's not going to be traditional. Because most VCs, venture capitalists, they are going to absolutely, they love it, but they're going to go after that high percentage of the company. So really the way this broke down was Mike coming up with something, the franchise model. We get this into casinos. We don't need FanDuel. We don't need a venture capitalist. We need you, Phil, to figure out, after I figured out that franchise model, you need to format it, Phil, so that we can get it in a way that works for the casinos. And that took time. Unfortunately, it's a month before the NFL season starts, but that part I just figured out a month ago. So that's why we can't sit here before you today and say, hey, we're going to have 300 casinos, because we are, very quickly. But how do you get 300 casinos a month before the season starts? One of the nice things, though, is one of the gaming features, and it's really important, is how, if you get eliminated week 1, you mean I got to wait till next year? No. You can buy back in week 2, week 3, all the way to week 17. Yes, you can buy in week 17 and have something that's fair enough to all the other players who've done the 10 achievements, the 10 rounds of advancing top 3 out of 12. We can do it in 1 week. And yes, sir.
Then do you have to pay 17 times the amount that the person in the first week paid
No.
to get it on the last week?
$5. As long as mathematically it's the same thing, that you advance 10 rounds against 12 players. You advance 10 rounds in groups of 12 with the top 3 advancing. If you can figure out a way to do that in just weeks 15, 16, and 17, that is the same exact process that someone in week 1 did, absolutely, because it's totally fair. And our programmers are fantasy football fanatics, and they're going, this is amazing.
So is that going to be easily understood by the public? Because just on the face of it, that seems like that would
Great
be
question.
frustrating.
Yes.
That would be troubling. Like, again, Chris Moneymaker is the standard because he started at the bottom, went all the way to the penthouse. If we thought that the Moneymaker effect is going to take us about 10 floors up, and then somebody's going to come in and go the last 3 floors and take all the money,
Here it is.
yeah.
You always have 10 floors built in, no matter where you are. So everybody knows that there's 10 floors. So if I know ahead of time, hey, the ground rules are, if you advance 1 time, you get X prize. Let's call it a dinner at a casino. If you advance 2 times, it's $25 in casino chips. If you advance 3 times, it's $50. 4 times, it's $200. You see what I'm saying? If everybody knows ahead of time what the rules are of the game,
Okay.
and you have somebody creative enough who can put that game into even 1 week with the same rules, then you have magic.
Yeah, I've become an expert at translating Phil. But I like your analogy, and here's how I'll translate even more. What if you had to go 10 floors, but someone who starts week 1 has 17 weeks to do it, and someone who starts week 17 has got to do the same 10 floors in 1 weekend? It's the same distance. They got to go. It's just going to be more challenging. So that's a lot of game rule stuff.
One other question related to obviously the FanDuel thing.
Uh-huh.
How long are the 80 patents good for, and is there any kind of threat where they expire and FanDuel or one of the other guys comes in and says, now we can copy what they're doing? And
I believe it's 7 years.
Okay.
The patents pending usually takes about 18 months. We're about 12 months into it, so we got a few more months before the pending is official. Even in the pending status, they're legit. They're as good as done from a legal protection standpoint. So the fact that they're pending, we've got them locked up. In 7 years, by then, I'm always kind of a realist. We don't really want to use patents to play defense in an industry. No one ever does. If you think, I got patents, I'm safe, I'll just play, someone does it, I'll just sue them. That's bad business. We have them, great, so we have a defense. But really, you got to play offense. You got to be best in the market, first in the market. 7 years from now, we'll be so far ahead of them, they'll finally have gotten the 10,000 hours in, and we've got 20,000. So it's too late. In fact,
When you're donating 99.9% of the money to disadvantaged communities, and you've been doing this for 7-8 years, and everybody else is running junk, and it transforms communities, because I'm sitting here before you telling you, because of what he's going to show you, this is going to be a $100 billion company plus in 7 years, and 99.9% of that transforms this country, because that's where this money's going. You watch it happen. People aren't going to be playing FanDuel.
I put up more slides because this kind of transition, not just from the Happy Meal to really a whole menu. And are you hungry? Did you guys eat before you came? You wish you ate before you came? Because this is where I got even more excited than just looking at fantasy football. We focused on fantasy football because it's 77% of the market in the United States. But when you look at the big picture, global fantasy, I didn't even believe him when he first told me. I said, there's fantasy Australian rules football, there's fantasy NASCAR, there's fantasy Formula One, there's fantasy English Premier League soccer. Our game plan is to launch fantasy football now, March Madness in 2015, March, April 2015, Major League Baseball starts. That's our first big three. When you look at the big picture, it's limitless. 100 million people watch the Super Bowl. Over 600 million watched World Cup soccer just a couple months ago. 6 times more. 580 million people in Europe watch Formula One racing. In India, they shut down cities for cricket matches. It's that popular there. The cricket stars there are bigger than any worldwide well-known entertainer in that country. And when you look at what Phil's done, let's play fantasy football just for a quick second. We've all got a quarterback. How do you know at the end of the day, what statistics do you use to say, this quarterback did the best? What's a statistic? Touchdowns, yards, completion percentages, right? So we can figure out how to have a fantasy football tournament, right? And rate each other. But now you want to open up fantasy cricket. Okay, what's the matrix there? You want to do fantasy table tennis, which is ping pong, in China. It's the biggest, most watched sport in China. Ping pong. How are you gonna make a tournament? How do you rate that one? I don't know. Do you? Guess who knows? Phil. Phil doesn't sleep. Phil, when we were getting this thing started, he would text me, email me. We'd go to coffee the next day. He's like, I figured out cricket. Like, what do you mean you figured out cricket? You actually wrote a cricket game. He's got about 8 different soccer tournaments. English Premier League, what's some, La Liga, World Cup. He's got 4 different cycling, Tour de France, all these different ones, golf. He's built over 100 different games, all copyrighted and patented for a worldwide global fantasy. So that's part of it. When we look at the FanDuels and really think competitively, they don't even do that. Down the road, I don't even know what the landscape of our business will look like. Fantasy football will be the lion's share year 1, 2, 3, probably into the next 5 years. But ultimately, it's probably going to be a small portion of the overall company. I'll give you more ideas because it gets pretty bonkers. But I was watching my son play video games. Anybody here have kids? Video games, right? He's playing, and up in the corner of the TV has all these different login people. And I'm looking, I'm like, who are those people? He goes, well, I know that one. That's my friend. We log in, we play together. He goes, the other ones are just online somewhere. And Phil had been drilling in my head, the fantasy football tournaments we got to build there. They got to be small groups of 10, 3 advanced. We got a scoring system, a model, a way to monetize. And I'm watching my son play this video game, and I'm noticing 10 people playing. I go, how do you know who wins? He goes, oh, it keeps track. There's a score. I said, what are all those things? Well, you can advance. You get new guns. You get promoted. You can be a sergeant. You can be da-da-da. I go, so it keeps track? I go, Phil, the next day, I go, fantasy Halo, fantasy World at War, fantasy FIFA Cup Soccer, fantasy Madden Sports Football. I go, the system's already there. These games are time-bound by a season. We'll have people sitting in their underwear for 3 or 4 days playing video games, paying us money across the country. If you think that fantasy football players won't play for multi-prize, Show me a guy who plays video games that won't pay $1 to try to win. And what if you're not in the top 3 of 12 and you're playing video games? What are you gonna do? You get killed. I'm playing again. God damn it! You will have a beard, like Derek's, right? Derek, right? Yeah, a beard like you've already played. You've been playing already. I'm like, oh my gosh! I saw that on the screen. I'm like, this is gonna be phenomenal. FIFA is the highest selling sports video game. People think they have control over a fantasy sports game. How much control do they think they have over their gaming? Like, this could be a huge amount of revenue. What a great idea, right?
Is most of the participation in NFL fantasy football in the United States, or is a lot of it in other countries?
I don't want to misquote my own number, but for football, I think it's 34 million, in Canada 3 million, and that's pretty much 99%. That's the majority of it for sure. Yep. So let's talk a little bit. Phil, being the game guy he is, actually created a little bit of a game for you. And initially, when he tasked me with raise capital, I went to my friends and family and investors. I said, okay, we've got a $100,000 minimum. Let's build this company. And I had a few people get us the initial capital to build the site and do the intellectual property. Now in the position we're at, Phil said, I want to go to my friends and family, but we're not going to be able to do a $100,000 minimum. I've got some other ways we've got to be able to help. Most of my friends are teachers and living right here. And I want to be able to have them be able to participate in the growth of the company. He goes, the people I know, I want them to be wealthy based on helping us, and we're going to help them. And this is the offer he created. It's an example. The minimum is 1,000, not the 5, but I'm illustrating 5 for just an example. That will be considered a debt with a royalty. Whatever initial amount you have in 3 years, specifically Super Bowl 2018, February 2018, we'll pay back that as a debt to you. Say thanks for the loan, here's your principal back. What you will always maintain from day one, not after 3 years, but immediately, is a royalty. That royalty will be a % of net profit after taxes from all of our tournaments, whatever we happen to run that year and in subsequent years from here to eternity. Phil's made it so that someone has a question. I like.
Date's been moved back to the 25th, wasn't it the 21st?
Yeah, we've had a sliding scale so that initially it was, I think the 17th. It was initially the 15th, but as people, we started this doing a Saturday and a Sunday. We thought we'd do 2 meetings, and then we've done 7 now. We're at 7 meetings. So as we've been going, we've been extending the date. So if this is your first time here, if you can invest by August 25th, your multiplier is something called 100. And this is the game Phil made, okay? Multipliers. Learn this game. 100 times your investment will be the annual income. It's the maximum annual income. So we'll assign a % royalty to you based on your investment. This fraction is always going to be constant. $5,000 is 1/8 of a %. And the way we came up with that was initially we were trying to raise about $400,000, and I carved off 10% of the company. So we carve off 10%, raise $400,000. That fraction is that fraction. So a $5,000 investment is 1/8 of a %. 500 times that multiple, up to $500,000 annually. So if you're $1,000, 1,000 times 100, you'd be up at $100,000 annually. Phil also wanted to make it so that if, okay, let's say they don't have the money right up front, what if they wanted to pay and build up an investment over a period of time? He had me put this one in here. If your goal was to have a $1,000 investment, we've got a deadline of 6 months. We have to have an investment by 6 months. 1,000 divided by the 6 is $166 a month. And you can do whatever amount. If you said, well, I can do $200 a month, the multiplier is less because we're not getting the money up front. We're having to wait a little bit. I guess you can call it a little bit of a penalty. The 1,000 times the 50 is now a $50,000 annual.
Mike, a couple people were asking, they were thinking that
Only invest either 1,000 or 5,000. No, people have done something in between. Some people have done more than 5,000. It's whatever you can do. If you have it, everybody has 6 days to get whatever they can do in for actually it's it's 21 days, I guess, is the way that I've had it. I've jumped the gun on him, so he's going to explain another part in a minute.
Is it in units of 1,000?
It doesn't have to be units of 1,000, no. No,
So
some people have done 1,500, 7,500, whatever.
The minimum is 1,000, but everything other. And combination. Someone said, well, what about a combination? What if I had a certain amount up front and I wanted to pay monthly so I can build it up in addition to just the first amount? And sure, it's just going to have different multipliers based on what you did. If you had 1,000 up front, it's got a multiplier of 100. If you got a multiple of 1,000 on a monthly plan, it's a 50. And what we started doing, we did this presentation. Believe it or not, someone left the first presentation, went golfing, told a friend about it. The friend wrote him a check on the spot without even seeing the presentation. And Phil said, hey, you know what, we're getting a lot of people refer. Why don't we give an incentive for referrals? So he created another part of the game. He said, well, if we can reward people for the referral, if they're going to do it, let's give them an incentive based on the multiplier. Instead of 100, this is an example. What if you refer 7 people? Kick up the factor a little bit. A factor of 2, for example. 2 times 7 referrals is 114. Now a multiplier of 100 becomes 114. Your annual max is now 500 up to the 570,000 instead.
What kind of referral then is 1 point?
Actually, we really haven't done any one. We pretty much made 2. So if you refer somebody.
Yeah. Initially, if you yourself invested 5,000 or more, your referrals are worth 2. If it was a less than $5,000 investment that you did, made it 1.
Is it based upon their investment?
No. No, just yours.
So if you've got all those people, investors, and each one is getting, say, 0.125%, blah, blah, blah. Well, that could add up to over 100%, right?
No, we won't let it
All
reach
your
that.
profit is,
No, we
you're
won't.
gonna be giving out more money you're taking in?
This is a limited opportunity.
Yeah, we'll cap.
This is not something that's going on indefinitely. We're raising a certain amount.
400,000 to 600,000, which would be 10 to 15% of the company. So you're exactly right. If you did this indefinitely, you give away the whole company. That's not happening. So you're sitting here with an opportunity in front of people who are also looking at the opportunity, and there's a lot of people. There's a film crew here today, one man, and he's filming it because there's people in all kinds of different states where people want to email it to their family and friends. So we're going to allow them to do that. But I would imagine it's going to take us another 1 to 2 weeks. I want to make sure all of my friends in the teaching profession know about this, and then we're going to cut it off.
Question about the numbers, Mike. If you say 1/8%, is that right? 4 or 5,000.
Yes.
1,125. So that's 8 times 800 times
Be 20%.
5,000 is $4 million.
Right, as a $4 million valuation. Yep. So to kind of,
You say you're trying to raise 400,000 to 600,000 this go around.
right.
It sounds like it's flexible. You may get 800,000.
We'd probably stop. We could, but that would be 20% of the company. So the only way we'd get to selling 100% of the company is if we raised $4 million. We just wouldn't take that many checks. We'd cut that.
At some point, we're going to say no to people. We're done.
Right.
So the percentage doesn't change once you
No.
signed on. That is your percentage. That is correct. And you
Right.
guys figure out the details on how it sticks to that percentage.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
will
well,
start
no,
hitting your cap. I mean, when you're talking about a company that's $100 billion plus company, $400 or $500 million on a $5,000 investment, you're going to be hitting your cap year after year after year. And of course, everybody's going to die. Then you will it to somebody else. This thing is an ongoing, permanent royalty.
But then as the company grows, the social programs are the benefit from that. We're capped out,
Right.
maxed at these high multipliers, and that's where the
Right.
extended growth goes.
let's ballpark that all the caps that everybody are going to have, including Phil and I, is going to be close to 100 million. Probably less, probably even less than that. So if the net profit was $100 million, if we're capped at 100 million, everything other than 100 million is donated. So, in fact, let me do this slide, and I'm going to show you the budget. An incentive to go faster than even the first date. The first date I showed, August 25th, was a drop. August 10th for you, for people here tonight, first meeting, the 100 we'd add 5 to it. So there's an incentive for speed.
So how many days is it from the first time that you're exposed to the stuff? Is it 6 days, you would say?
6, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was this, August 10th, what was that?
August 10th, if you can have the investment by August 10th to us, we'll make your 100 a 105. Or your 50 a 55. Just an extra 5 to the multiplier. For example, the person that did the referral said he ended up coming 3 days after his initial meeting with his check and the referral from the guy that played golf with him and said, here's mine, here's his. He was a 105 because it got us before the deadline for his first 6 days, and he had the referral, so his was a 107 multiplier. And he happened to do 15,000, so his max was 1.6 plus million per year.
But if you don't hit that 6-day deadline, then you drop down to a measly 100, right?
Yeah, measly 100. Yeah.
That's not quite right.
Measly 100, did you say?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I thought you were talking about 50. Yeah. The 50 is the contract. The measly 100 is after 6 days. And I'm sorry that we had to drop it so much.
Quick question related to the royalty. Is that something that you guys plan to do one time a year on the same day for everyone? Is that how it will work?
Yeah, ultimately if you give me your email, I'm gonna send you the actual contract and go read it. What it'll say is the first business day in March.
And here's actually the data. This is something that we've had in our business plan, and I'll reflect back on what I was saying. This initially was us saying to who we put this in front of, we're trying to raise $20 million. Our initial goal, $20 million, where $13 million was prize money, 6 plus was operating cost. The lion's share of the operating cost was advertising, lots of advertising. So initially when we put this business plan together, we were trying to raise $20 million. Now we're not trying to raise $20 million. The leveraging of the franchise is such that we're going to the casinos and saying, we will install our game. We'll do the back end, the reporting system, the technology. Now you as a casino, you put up the prize money, whatever you want, and you advertise it. We've virtually, for our initial year to operate, wiped off the need for the $20 million. When we wiped off the need for the $20 million, what we still had a need for was capital to get the infrastructure going, which is why we came to you, friends and family, and said, here's your opportunity to help us out. Russ?
So you do get a franchise fee, I assume?
Yeah, initially that was the model I built. I said, I'm gonna sell this like a McDonald's. You gotta buy the franchise. And then I talked to several people in the industry. I said, how did you, with relationships already, that have put slot machines in casinos and gaming, I said, how did you get your business built with these casino relationships? They gave it away. They said, we just put the slot machine in for free and share the revenue from the machine. He says, I would advocate that. If you go to a casino and say we want upfront money to test your game, you're going to have a tougher road. Just install it for free and split the revenue with the casino. And that's our model in year one. So if you said, what's the plan? Year one right now, 2014, franchise model, go to the casinos, install, let them run the prize money and operating costs for marketing and build the proof of concept.
What's the split?
Different casinos are going to be different. We're imagining 50-50. But honestly, what's that?
Okay, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll put 50-50. Some of the vendors we're using that already have the marketing component with people that can go into the casino, we're doing a 3-way split. Us for the operating, the casino gets their cut, obviously, and the salesperson's going to get something. That's built for speed. So instead of me going to 100 casinos in the next 3 weeks, all I have to do is email our built franchise model to a group of people. There's 50 specifically, and those 50 people will walk into the casino in the next 2 weeks saying, what do you think about franchise sports? They're going to have a cut as well. First year only. And this is what, go ahead, Dan.
Have any casinos committed to it yet?
2 racetracks and a bunch of sports bars. And then I'm working on a ton more right now.
And keep in mind what I said, this was only figured out the casino model. Mike came up with the licensing part, franchising part, and it, okay, that's a great idea, Mike, but now I got to figure out how to do that. So that one was figured out about a month ago. So it's just kind of like we're hitting the ground running.
We're pretty fortunate. We don't have to have this implemented by week one. If you're playing in a traditional fantasy football league, you've got to have your draft done, team selected into the computer by week one to start the season. Our tournament structure, the way Phil's built it, we can start week one with one casino, week two, a different casino. We can start as late in the middle of the season. So as popularity builds, and we've installed one and then two and then three, we're going to have proof of concept and data to go to a casino week 4, week 5 and say, look what we've done here. Look at the foot traffic, look at the increase, install this right then and there.
So you said 2 racetracks. Does that mean that there's fantasy racing already going on in those 2 locations? Or is it purely football for the first year or 2 or 3?
This will be first football initially. Yeah, we won't do the fantasy racing, although they're interested in that. Right now they do simulcast and live, but they just want more player engagement.
So is there potential then for payout March?
Yeah.
2015?
Yeah, I wouldn't kid you and say you're gonna be a millionaire this March, but we anticipate having profit from this NFL season to pay out some kind of royalty to you in March. Yep.
I follow all that down till I get to the 20% interest, and I'm not quite sure what that.
That was, yeah, I should probably take it off, but initially this was a packet we were sending to casinos saying, we need this 20 million and we'll give you 20%. So I was illustrating, 20% interest in the company.
With a cap on them too, on the revenue that they could get, like we cap them at like $100-200 million, and they were thinking about it, but ultimately things broke down.
And this is an example of forecast. Go ahead. What? Yeah.
Do you anticipate any problems with casinos wanting to take it out of the casinos and make it online?
For our game?
Yeah.
I expect they will. I illustrated to them about 80% of the people that will play on their URL are not going to be in the casino while they're playing. They're going to play from the comfort of their homes. But you can have banner ads on the internet. You can have the on-site advertising in the casino. So people that come Monday through Friday can see, I should play this game. Then they go home, get online, and play. The casino's draw is that after those people have played online and win, they come into the casino for redemption.
Remember, 3 out of 12 always advance. So it's not like there's just these 2 or 3 big winners.
So most likely, 90% of the group playing is going to have some kind of winner. That's right down their that's right in their batting zone. You know, I'm going to get almost 100% of the people who play this game want to come to the casino to redeem something. Please show me how to. Please bring that into my casino. Set it up.
The casinos we actually have, and Phil developed this, is actually an on-site game. A lot of the sports bars that they're trying to draw attention to there, they could actually have their high rollers log in, and if you've been in a casino and have a TV up on the screen with our website actually showing the high rollers, the 12 people playing with their face and their icon as the NFL day is going on and how they're ranking. So Phil's idea, and the casinos loved it, was a little bit of trash talking at the casino pit, right? Be like looking like I'm beating you, and so the high stakes guys, they want them staying in the casino. So to have that engagement, the casinos got pretty excited about that too. This is the actual budget. So I'll give you an example of your 1/8%. If you said I'm 5,000, I get the 0.125%. This is an example of a year of $100 million profit. 100 million times the 0.125, that would be income to you of 125,000 if you just did the math on it. So if you invest 5,000, the max is the 500. When would you get to that 500? This year specifically here, you'd be at about 125. But once you progress into here, when we're a $1 billion company, you'll be at $500,000 in income. If you had to label each of those, this is our strategy. 2014, we're running the franchise model. 2001 would be 2015. 2016, 2017. This specific year is when your debt would be repaid. The Super Bowl 2018 in year 3. Something that's pretty interesting about this, you said, where'd you come up with some of the numbers? You key in on this a little bit as a target. 34 million people play fantasy sports right now. 34 million. If our objective is in 3 years to hit 10% market share, that creates about a 3.4 million person market for us. That's just football. Other sports aren't even built into this. Monetizing the website from an advertising standpoint. We've got Ford interested, Cigar Aficionado, GQ Magazine. A lot of sites they cherish our demographic. Middle-aged men with income, families, married with kids, and disposable income. They want our market. So Ford would love to have a banner on our site and actually will invest with us and pay us to have advertising if we can produce that kind of market for them. Their key was 100,000. They said, prove you can get 100,000 people. If you can get 100,000 unique emails or people playing your game, we're interested in investing. So that's with that casino model we're running this year, that was my initial thought. We've got to get at least 100,000 people. Minimum, I don't want to say it's easy, but it will be done. Now we can go advertise. When we have 3.4 million people, the advertising, the Facebook model of generating revenue will be prevalent for us, let alone the stuff we haven't even developed.
What does it say, 680 million? This tournament will generate if we get 10% market share.
Just football.
Remember, first of all, that's just football. And do not forget, 10% market share, that is not what the moneymaker effect predicts. The moneymaker effect predicts that you're going to go the way poker did from 1 to 10 million people. So you're not going to have less than 34 million people playing. It's how many more than 34 million people are going to be playing this eventually. And I want you to keep in mind, if somebody does a $3, $4, $5, let's say $5,000 investment, that $500,000 Mike's talking about is an annual royalty. So you'll be getting a check when this thing's up and fully, not even fully developed, but just hitting some of these smaller benchmarks like 10% market share, $500,000 year after year after year. I would encourage you because, like I said, there's a limited number of shares. You saw the math, and I've been sending out emails to friends, and a lot of them come out and shown this to you. A lot of you guys are my friends, but this does end at some point because we're going to give away about 10 to 15%, and then we're going to end it. And if you have people that you care about or you have friends, bring them in on Wednesday. We had 43 people one day, but on the average we're getting about anywhere from 18 to 22 people that come. So there's still an opportunity for people that you know and obviously for yourselves. Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
When you say 10 or 20%, 10 or 20% of what? What number? What are we talking about? Ownership? And not ownership of the company because you don't own any.
It's a royalty stake.
Right, but 10 or 20% of what number or what thing?
You want to go for that, Mike?
We basically created the number.
You have to, it's called a valuation. We just said, what's the valuation of our company? What's the total valuation? If we're going to sell 10% of it, what's that mean? And we backed into that number. So we're trying to.
$400,000 figure that you started out with?
400,000 is 10% of the company.
It's 10%.
Which means the total company is valued at $4 million.
Which is really bogus.
It's small.
Stuff for $20 million. Let's just call it a $4 million company and sell 10% of the royalties up until people are going to be capped, because ultimately we want to give all the money away to disadvantaged communities. So if you make that evaluation and everybody's going to hit their cap when we hit $500 million.
It's about year 2. Or in year 2 you hit the cap.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Of this.
So then we just give all the money away. Mike and I are capped. Everybody's capped. The whole idea is let's just give this money away to disadvantaged communities.
We hit 420 million in net free cash flow. Everybody's capped. And you're right, that is achieved right here. Which on here it's year 2, but practically speaking it's year 3, because the first year we're running the franchise model, and then we have the money maker effect year 2 and 3.
But you determine your cap. Right. If you want, because we're showing you something and we're going, hey, look, no matter how much you want to invest in, we're going to cut it off at some point. If you said, well, I want to invest $10 million, then all of a sudden you're shooting everybody else out. But yeah, want to invest $1,000 and you do it in 6 days, you've got a $105,000 cap. If you want to invest $20,000, you've created a $2,100,000 cap for yourself that is ongoing.
The cap is based on having 6,800,000 players spending an average of $200 a piece per year on fantasy football, and that gets to the nut, and that's it.
People look at it and say, why are you lowballing this so much? And the response is, because people cannot wrap their minds around the fact that guys will spend 20 to 30 bucks a week instead of going to the movies to watch the Thursday night game and try to advance in this thing, and they're going to spend $400 or $500 a year on it, and this thing has got more potential than Facebook, Google, and Apple combined. That they can't wrap their mind around it, so we lowball it.
If I added other sports in here and other ways to monetize the website, the numbers got even bigger than they already are, which to me, it could be mind-boggling to you as it stands. Say you're going to have $1 billion company. It's a big reason I put up that initial chart that you could look at that and say, you guys are nuts. You're going to have $1 billion company? Like we're not the first to ever do that. World Series of Poker did it in 3 short years, 2003, 2004, 2005, boom, $1 billion company.
With one game.
With poker online. That's all it was. We've got the fantasy sports industry, much more mature, much more fun, 100% more legal.
One of the slides you showed of like FanDuel earlier had a pretty good sized staff. Like, what's your staff beyond the commission sales reps that are out there trying to get in the casinos?
So far, it's been mostly vendors. If you said who's in the company, it's Phil and I. Okay. Our vendors are such that our programmers, there's 5 of them, and he's hiring more staff. Our legal counsel, we've got 3 people with a staff that can escalate. Our marketing company, Glass Agency downtown, they just did this Save the Kings campaign, have been phenomenal from a graphic design type standpoint. And we bring more people on as vendors. Ultimately, we'll have a massive in-house. We'll bring programming in. We'll bring marketing ideas in. We'll need a customized tournament director per sport, most likely. Bloggers, media. Go ahead.
So I know
Russ?
you have a former elected official on the list of people that I was reading about in your prospectus. Rusty Arias, I'm familiar with him.
Yes.
Do you anticipate any kind of, I know it notes in there somewhere that you're very cognizant of governmental oversight, things like that. You guys anticipate any issues in that regard?
We're being prepared for it. So Rusty is a part of a company called California Strategies. He's downtown, very, very well known, very, very popular. What's that?
He's a lobbyist?
I wouldn't say technically he's a lobbyist.
I think that's a term he wants to use. But
Yeah, but he gets into the house. He can get into anybody. And really, the way things are going, I'm trying to think of a better word, is actually to legalize, not the opposite. Most states are wanting revenue. They want online poker legal is coming. Us being protected, we're looking pretty good. I don't see the trend going in any other direction.
Yeah, the tide is definitely, I mean, poker, online poker for gaming is illegal right now, but the tide is definitely turning. And
Why did they
in the legislation,
do that with online poker?
they said it was a game of chance. But in that unfair, unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act of 2006 that Congress banned, they had a special carve out for fantasy sports and said that is not a game of chance, that is a game of skill. So it is legal.
Yeah, if you want to look it up, this is it.
I'm pretty sure I know guys that have been playing online poker since 2006 or 8, did you say?
Those sites are overseas.
Different countries.
Gibraltar, England. Yep. And if they're in the United States, it's illegal. But that was something Phil told me. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Over 1 million people in the United States that play online poker, and it's illegal. So when we put up, like, people challenge the numbers sometimes. They say, how are you gonna get 1.6 million people play your fantasy sports game? I'm like, over 1 million people play online poker, and it's illegal. We'll get over 1 million people playing fantasy sports. It's legal. This is actual law. You could look up UIGEA 2006. And yeah, fantasy or simulation games are good, it's provided you meet the requirements, and that's what we make sure we do. Yeah.
Federally, it's legal, but there is a few states where it's
Yeah.
still kind of
There were 6 states where even online fantasy sports is not legal. It's now 5. Maryland just gave the thumbs up. There's 5 that are not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As a lender, you're protected legally though? I mean,
yeah, because on our site, when you log in, you have to say, I'm over 18 and I live here. Now, if you lie, that's bad on you. But if you said, I live in Arizona, we block you. You can't play.
Companies all over the country that are doing it.
Yeah.
The legal challenges and fantasy sports all together.
That's the lucky thing for us. When Phil initially brought this to me, I said, is it legal? And if we were the first to test this, I'd be maybe even skeptical. It's like, anybody else doing this since 2006? Yeah, everybody. ESPN, FanDuel's been in business since 2006. So from the time poker's been illegal and this law has been in place, fantasy sports online has blossomed. It's grown, leaps and bounds. $15 billion industry. It's not. There's no challenge there.
So if something were to happen, like from the legal aspect, or personally as an individual, we're okay. It's all
Yes.
Scratch the LLC.
A limited liability corporation. We're protected. And if you said, okay, critically speaking, what if it's shut down in the United States? Well, online poker got shut down, but those companies are still huge. They're in Gibraltar. We have football, we have cricket, we have ways to protect ourselves and just go elsewhere. My thing was, what if we just get to year 3 and we're a $1 billion company and we all hit our caps and you have 500,000 and our company goes away? Congratulations, your $5,000 was 500 and walk away, be happy. That's good, that's a good return. And it won't happen, but, right.
Just because fantasy sports, it's too big. There's
That are just too big. One of them's the NFL.
Yeah, so it's not like
You're giving away 99.9% of the money to disadvantaged communities. They're not going to want to shut that down. It's legal already, and even if fantasy football became illegal in this country, which will never happen for money, we've got games all throughout the world that are going to be bigger. I mean, India with 1 billion people, that game, cricket's going to be bigger with all other stuff in our NFL game, even though that might be hard to fathom right now.
Wrap up.
I want to know, if you go ahead and make the commitment, then do you receive some sort of a certificate, document? I
Yeah.
mean, do you have a picture of what I'm going to get? that
Yeah.
you can put on the
I think
screen?
I emailed it to you. Have you given me your email?
It's a promissory note, right?
It's the promissory
Do
note.
do I give you a check and you
Uh-huh.
give me a paper that says, okay, Matt, you've got, 1/8 of 1%, and here it is.
Yeah,
You
it-
know, I mean, I got it.
Yeah, you have it's an agreement, it's a promissory note that'll show you that you've got a debt, you're a debt holder, you're lending money to us with the repay date. And the
you're
royalty.
And it's legal, is it notarized, I mean, things like that?
No, we don't know. What's that?
Is it a loan? Okay.
It's
So
a
I
loan,
just-
yeah, but we're not
I just
notarizing
have your
anything.
word, your signature. is
Yeah.
on it.
Mhm.
And I'm in possession of it.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yep. If you would like, I'm glad you brought that up, Matt. If you want to give me your email address, what I'll do is I can send you the business plan. I can send you an example of the promissory note. I can send you basically some of the screens that show here's what the offer is, the deadlines, and all that fun stuff too. And it'll also be my way, ultimately, if you do invest, to keep you informed as to how the company's looking and what we're doing.
Let me just say, I've had so many people, it's crazy. I've got, I'll just show you. This came here. Somebody FedExed me a $7,500 check, and I said I won't take it. You got to watch the video first, okay? Because you got to know what you're getting into. You watch the video. If you give me the thumbs up, then we'll do business. We will send a contract with our signatures. You get it. Send it back with your signature, so both sides, all parties have the signatures from both sides, and then you're good to go. And that's the way we'll do it with your folks.
What's the risk? Is there a downside?
Here's the risk.
What's the downside?
This is the downside, because we're sitting here leveraging 20% of the company with this franchising model, right? We don't have the grand prize and all that stuff. Based on our discussions, because we've been in casinos and Native American casinos in front of their tribal councils, and they're fired up about it. They were thinking, well, we're going to buy the whole thing ourselves. It was just going to be run through our casino. So we've been to enough of them to understand that, hey, they're interested. But the downside would be if all of a sudden we got no response, nobody wants to team up with us. So now all of a sudden we have this valuable intellectual property and we're struggling with how do we get this thing launched? And we never do. Well, the issue, the thing that we do know is individual casinos have wanted to give us $20 to $30 million to own the thing. So then what we do is we say, hey, you know what, you guys? Mike and I are so incompetent, we were unable to get the teams that are begging to have new product to show casinos. We were so incompetent, we couldn't get that going. So we had to sell the intellectual property to pay back you folks. That's the biggest downside that I see.
The only reason we turned down the initial purchase of equity in our company is they wanted too much. So Phil's exit strategy is we just go to them and sell them. If they were going to give us the money for 80%, they'll buy it from us for 100. Take the whole project and we pay off our debt, which is you. And as a debt holder, you've actually stand in line before Phil and I get anything. So you're in a primary writing position. Eddie?
I probably have one last question. I'll
Sure.
stop with the questions.
Okay.
I read on your business plan that your server can handle 250,000 simultaneous users. When do you guys expect that number to grow?
That's the quantity of instances for a server.
The way they've built it is a scalable server system. So it's an Amazon web system that can vertically or horizontally scale. And the way he's explained to me, our programmer, is once you hit that many people, it just turns on another server to scale up. And as people log off, it cuts the server back down, which was a huge cost saver for us. So instead of us saying, we got to have 10 servers and buy them. The way the scalable system is, we have one, pay for it. We need a second, pay for it. As soon as our volume goes down, close it off. Keeps our budget really lean and mean.
So that way you don't have those errors saying try again later.
Right.
Awesome.
Can't happen.
Awesome.
Can't happen. It'd be death.
As an investor, can you play?
Can investors play?
I believe that's a conflict.
You can play, but you can't win.
Play, but I don't think
You can't win. Don't win. Hey, who won your first? Phil's wife won, then my dad won, and then my brother won.
is holding up
It depends how much you invest. Yeah. The more you invest, the more higher likeliness you're going to win. Okay.
What if you, let's say you write a check and you say you're within that 6 days, so your multiplier is 105, and then 3 or 4 days later, a couple of people that you referred, they sign.
Yeah, I'll redo it.
You sort of.
Yeah, I'll just redo we've had that happen. What I would do for your comfort level is as soon as you did an initial amount, I would give you the contract so you've got something in your hands. Then we'll just wait to see how his referrals come in and modify it. So I wouldn't say, let's just wait for your contract. Write us a check and then wait until see your referrals. No, I'll get you the agreement right away so you have something, and then modify it based on referrals. Easy.
Just to confirm, I think you touched on it, but I guess it was the version 10 of the business plan that I received.
Yep.
An email, talked about in the ask and offer that you were originally looking for 300,000 to 19.5 million. But
right.
As I've heard, it sounds like because you've got a franchise model, that 19.5 million is not what you're seeking. It is that 400,000 or so.
Yeah. I kept in the business plan because if someone called and said, hey, we've got 20 million for you, you can run your multi-millions right now, and they agreed to the terms, which has been the issue, that they want unlimited upside with no caps. If they agreed to all the terms, we would do it like that. Because think about and if you're good with math, you have to be, I'll tell you the numbers. We're trying to raise 400,000 to be 10%. What does that mean 20% would be for you guys? 800,000, right? So in essence, what Phil has done for you guys is said, we'll make 20% of the company 800 grand for you. But if a casino comes to us with 20 million for the same 20%, you guys are good friends, but I don't know if we're going to take your 800 instead of their 20 million for the same 20% if they agree to what everybody else is. If you're in, we're obligated. But if a casino, so with that business plan, I'm still looking for the whale.
Okay.
If MGM, which we've been talking to with MGM, if MGM said, we'll do the 20 million, let's go, we may close the doors on this and go for that and screw the franchise model and boom, run our multi-million-dollar tournament. Nothing would stop us. But with all realism, those things take forever. If they said yes now to the 20 million, there's no way we'd do it this season. It would take, with their due diligence and their attorneys, it's going to take us till next year anyway. So make sure you get your email to me if you want the information. And tell people, yeah, thanks so much for stopping by.
How do you get the documents back to you?
We'll coordinate by email. If you respond to my email that I'll send you probably tonight with the time and date that you might want to meet. A lot of people have just been coming on the next date, so we'll be here Wednesday anyway, or I can meet you out and about for your schedule. Most people just personal checks. Cash, yeah. Rolls of quarters. Thank you.
Thank you.